Hi guys, welcome back to my search for freedom. Today I'm happy because I'm doing my second interview since this channel started. So we are meeting with a brother, with a friend who is in Rwanda, like me. So he left the Western world. Now he is trying to establish himself in Rwanda. I'm going to ask him some questions. He is going to talk about his activities here. But before we do, let's remember to subscribe, to share, to like, and to comment our videos. Thank you for watching. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, my brother, and tell us who you are, tell the viewers who you are, and what you do in Rwanda, what brings you in Rwanda.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Pierre, for having me on your channel. Much appreciated, brother. My name is Marlin, Weir, and originally I'm from Jamaica. I was raised in New York, in America, and I spent quite a bit of time in the Middle East prior to coming to Rwanda. What brought me to Rwanda and why? I feel as someone that loves Africa, as a Pan-African, I've always had a longing for my people, a certain level of peace of mind, that feeling of I belong. And I think millions of people around the world of African descent particularly share in this, because as we're born in these Western spaces, even though Jamaica is predominantly Black African, we know that that island is too small to really capture who we are as African people. So we must have come from a bigger space, and obviously that is the continent. So really discovering our roots, so to speak, is what brings me joy at this moment. Being able to come to a place that it feels like you're back again, even though it might be for the first time that you physically remember being in a space. But you'll see recognition both within yourself when you look at others, and sometimes you catch it on other people's faces when they look at you, because they see, you look like somebody I know. So we know that as African people, no matter how much time or distance has separated us and how much history has passed, it's like we never parted. And if we have patience and persistence to be able to seek truth, then we're able to make these connections again with who we are and kind of recapture that bit of ourselves that we always knew that was there, but we just didn't have the information, the pieces to put the puzzle back together. And I feel that that's the journey that I'm on currently. And because I have this global experience and global knowledge now, my calling is to be a bridge. So to connect our brothers and sisters in the West, diaspora, people that have, African people that haven't even been to the continent or even thought about coming to the continent because of the brainwashing they've been indoctrinated with about Africa in terms of negativity. So if I can show them, hey, I'm from where you're from, I speak how you speak, I've been socialized how you've been socialized, and now I'm physically here on the continent, and I can tell you all those things that you've heard are not accurate. Even if some things have, some little inkling in truth, which most stereotypes do, that's why they're stereotypes, it's been exasperated to the point to make us feel so afraid to connect with each other. Like Brother Malcolm said, who taught you to hate yourself? So if we can distrust each other, we're going to trust others more than we trust another African. So yeah, as that bridge, I'm trying to see how I can reverse that. Number one, by spending time on the continent, giving of myself. Because money, to be honest, isn't real. It doesn't mean anything. You can give money from now till the cows come home. People will still be in the same condition, because aid does not work. Aid makes you dependent. Aid makes you a slave. Again, a new slave. And then you always want, right? Teach a man to fish. Don't just give a man fish. So I'm here to make an impact and have an impact made upon myself.
Wonderful. So, when did you move to Rwanda?
Yeah, so it's been 4 years next month.
Oh.
Yeah, September 2020. So it'll be 4 years in September 2020.
Did you have the date that you moved to September?
It was a little bit rough. I know it was around my birthday, which is the 27th. So it was
Okay.
in the 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why Rwanda? Have you visited other countries in the continent?
Yeah, so prior to moving to Rwanda, I was living in the Middle East, in the UAE, in Dubai, and I lived there for quite a while, over a decade. Towards the end of my time in Dubai, I started to make this conscious recognition that most of my friends are from the continent. And I'm looking around, sure, like we knew some Europeans and some white Americans, etc. But for the most part, I had a lot of friends from Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia. And I'd always hear about why they were in the Middle East. And I'm pushing back with, we have to reverse the brain drain and stay at home and build our countries and this kind of thing. And one of my friends, after hearing me wax poetical, is just like, if you love Africa so much, why don't you go to Africa? And I said, I will. And so I started coming to East Africa first. So I've been to Kenya a few times. Been to Tanzania, been to Southern Africa a little bit, South Africa. In Egypt, I was there first, actually. Now, I'll backtrack a little bit because I kind of have to give a bit of context for my passion for Africa. So, being born in Jamaica, I was 4 years old when my family moved to America. And when you're that young, a lot of things don't make sense. And you only realize, sometimes you're causing trouble in school or acting out at home, certain things that adolescents go through. And people chalk it up to just, they're going through a phase, or they're just young, or, teenagers do this, or younger kids do this, etc. Even I can remember I had a speech impediment when I first moved to America, and I couldn't talk to anybody, and I had to take speech therapy. Only later on did I realize that trauma can manifest in many ways. And apparently for me, it manifested in that kind of way that I couldn't express myself audibly. But lo and behold, that was a blessing in disguise because I was able to listen more than I spoke. And with all that listening, especially as a child, you might not be able to make sense of it at the time, but I was picking up a lot of information. And because the talking over wasn't happening, it was just absorbing. So as I'm going to speech therapy and the therapist trying to help me to break out of my shell, as it were, and I'm putting these words together, my parents are educators, so for them, the way through this, there's nothing wrong with you. Read more books, read the dictionary, read the Bible, read this, read this, read this, read this. So education was very big with us, just like any immigrant family, study hard and you'll make something of yourself in America or the West or what have you. And that's what we did. That was our upbringing. And I would, on my own, start to look deeper into things when it came to Black history. And that's Black American history, but also I'm like, there must be more, because we didn't just show up here. So where did these guys even learn from in terms of like the liberation struggles, let's say from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X, even before that, and Frederick Douglass, etc. Mm-hmm. So I started getting into Pan-Africanism, things like I mentioned there, Frederick Douglass, but also with me, my favorite being Jamaican, is the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Marcus Garvey, listening to him speak, because there's old recordings and you just hear the passion and the fire that he spoke with, and we're talking 1900s. Yeah, so such an early period of time to be saying, up, up, you mighty race, accomplish what you will. And there's nothing wrong with you and you're just as good as anybody else. God made you the same way he made everybody else. Only thing holding us back is our mind. And these things really resonated with me because I thought that maybe because I couldn't speak well when I was younger, or this reason, or being from another country is hard in America. But even before I saw my Black American counterparts, still experiencing racism and oppression and these kinds of things. And I'm just like, wow, we're just not appreciated or respected in these spaces. So now bring it back to the physical proof of that. My ID document was a green card with my 4-year-old baby picture on it till I was like 16 years old. And it says resident alien. So you're not able to even mentally think that you're from this place and say, I'm American. Me, I'm an alien. So this makes sense for people to be afraid of aliens. Then I started learning words like xenophobia. And really sharpening my vocabulary, because I'm like, when I do talk, I'm going to be really good at it.
Yes.
Because I've been listening. And eventually, that did happen. And I broke out of my shell and started becoming a writer and writing essays and talking on stages and these kinds of things. So it kind of was like that caterpillar turning into a butterfly stage, my mom would say, that I just pretty much blossomed, in front of her and started being confident in these kind of things. So thank goodness for adversity in life, because adversity teaches you how to be stronger mentally and handle anything else life has to throw at you later on. Because if you can get through those challenges as a young person, the world's yours. The world's yours. And okay, so Rwanda is a special country. I first heard about Rwanda, maybe like a lot of other people, with Hotel Rwanda, the film. And as I dug into that more, because everything Africa was like fascinating to me, growing up. And I remember in the late 1980s with the hip hop, guys used to wear these big medallions with Africa on the medallion, and everything red, the black, the green, it was this whole like African movement. So not necessarily like how Marcus Garvey was preaching it back to Africa, but there was a renewed sense of it's okay to identify with Africa being black in America. And Cross Colors was a fashion brand, I remember, and they made a lot of like African garb. You saw guys wearing dashikis, and what have you. So that kind of became normalized, for a period. And that had a strong influence on me. A lot of conscious hip-hop had an influence on me. So from KRS-One to X-Clan, Rakim is a very great lyricist, and knowledge of self and 5% Nation and these kinds of things. Reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, the film by Spike Lee, Malcolm X, and Denzel Washington playing that character just was mind blowing to me. I mean, like Denzel was so good, and it was so well written. It's really brought Brother Malcolm's story to life vividly and beautifully, and you saw how much respect that he got as a black man within the context of the influence he controlled in our communities. So you saw that if we're disciplined and are all moving in the same direction, we can overcome and we can achieve big things. Similar thing with Martin Luther King, Dr. King, again, preached unity. If we can unify and be peaceful in the way that we do things, but also consistent, then we can change things. So there's different things at play, and I kind of used all of these to develop my worldview at that point, because I wasn't a traveler. I was, a young person. The only place I'd been is Jamaica and America. So we'd go back to Jamaica every summer and visit my grandmother and cousins and this kind of thing. And you see the kind of impoverished situations that we're coming from. And, when you're young, you don't even know you're poor. But we can tell now because we live in America in a house. Me and my two brothers, we all had one room, but we have a room. In Jamaica, it was like, right, we're from the country. It's just everyone's barefoot outside, running around, playing, but happy. Because we're kids, we don't know any different. And we just hear, the grown people talking at nighttime, by candlelight, kind of, oh, they sound sad, but we're happy, we're still playing, and there's food everywhere. We have enough to eat. So for us, it didn't feel like a desperate situation or condition at all. But like I said, again, as you study more and you realize as a human right and as a human being what you're entitled to, and when I say entitled, I don't mean being entitled, but as a human right. We shouldn't be having to fight for food or fight for shelter or fight for clean water when we can spend millions of dollars on weapons as powerful countries. Why can't we do simple things for humanity like feed the world, clothe the world, shelter the world, these kinds of things. So yeah, all those things, built up my worldview and understanding of the world that, right, things aren't fair, things are uneven, and a lot of people groups have found strength and unity. And for whatever reason, us as Africans globally, wherever we are in the world, we always have some kind of issue with working together. And that's when I started to dig more into Pan-Africanism and more into the history of the forced migrations of African people globally, be that with the trans-Saharan slave trade, which is even before the transatlantic, in terms of like the Arabs enslaving Africans, and then you get into the transatlantic slave trade, and then furthermore colonization and these kinds of things. So it just really, really runs deep psychologically, physically, spiritually, in terms of African spirituality, how it was demeaned and demonized, and you shouldn't think this way, even though all of your ancestors since time immemorial have thought this way. You should think the way that we're telling you. So yeah, you kind of realize that, I don't belong here, and my home is in my head until I figure out where I belong. So hearing about Rwanda in that film and seeing the absolutely horrific situations that were happening here in 1994 just really spoke to me, and knowing that the country got over that. I didn't know exactly what the situation was currently, but I knew that it was in a better situation because we weren't hearing about Rwanda in that context anymore from 2000s onward kind of thing. And, the human spirit is capable of anything. Obviously, absolute horrific barbarity, but as well as benevolence and kindness and love and compassion, forgiveness. What's happening here in Rwanda, showing the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to forgive, the ability to come together and work with each other, cooperate for the greater good. I think I've only seen that with a certain life form or animal, let's say, which is an ant. Ants to me are the ideal social creature because they live in tight-knit circles. They all work together for the common good. You never see an ant do for self. All ants work together for the colony. And if we think about Africa as how Africa was, we were community, which is why we have that African proverb, it takes a community to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. Because the whole village is your parents. You do something wrong, everybody's going to beat you. And they'll tell your parents later. And that's kind of how we were in Jamaica, early on. But as time went on, you get westernized and buy into all the things they sell you over there, the American dream and individualism, and you can do this and you can do that, and you, which turns into your mind I, as opposed to the collective, the we.
You said during the conversation that Rwanda is a very special country. I think also Rwanda is a very special country in many ways. Actually, I was talking to my brother last night. He was asking me about Rwanda, And then I told him, I've never seen a country, because I don't travel all over the world, but I've never seen a country with so many hills.
Yeah.
I have never seen that. I don't know if you saw that before, but in that sense, I think Rwanda is a special country. The beauty is unique.
Yeah.
You come from a hill, you go to another hill, you go down, you up, down, up,
Yeah.
everywhere you go. If you are driving, you have to have a good car that has a very good engine to be able to drive or to in Rwanda. So also, I would say, I will let you answer, but I would like to also say that Rwanda for me is special because even if the government wanted to implement some rules, some laws, if the citizens were not following through, for example, for security, for cleanliness, all that, the order, if the citizen didn't follow through, the country wouldn't be where it is now.
Right.
Because I think other countries in Africa, they have rules, they have laws, but the citizens maybe don't follow through. And also the authority of the state also play a good role, because you have to have authority. You have to, if you say something, you have to follow what you say.
Yeah.
So when you say special country, what do you mean?
Rwanda is a very special country. Looking at where it's come from less than a lifetime ago, we're talking within 30 years of recent issues, Rwanda has been able to seemingly overcome so much. This could have easily been a failed state if people just threw their hands up and said, what can I do? Or leadership just went the way of so many other developing countries, whereas they just say, let me see what I can do for myself and my friends only, as opposed to let me look after the country. And I feel that's what the leadership here did. They tightened their belt, put their head down, and said, let's get to work. Something tried to tear us apart as a country. We need to heal the wounds, but we need to acknowledge it, heal the wounds, and collectively work together to put the country back together. And today, fast forward, 30 years later, you see Rwanda is not only just in a good condition from what it came from, but by any means of the word, globally. I can't think of another example of a turnaround that's been so dramatic from where Rwanda was 30 years ago to where it is today. And without so much natural resources in terms of gold or diamonds or oil, or even a massive population like China, whereas you can put everyone to work and make money for the country. So Rwanda really did it its own way. Sheer political will, start with that. A consistent message to the people of we can do this, and we are going to fix this ourselves, because the international community, we can't depend on them. Even some of them, and I think we know who, was complicit in the problems that happened here. So Rwanda very early on in their healing period saw that we really have to look internally and start from the village level on up to the government, and everyone have reconciliation. Admit what's happened, punish those that need to be punished, and reconcile within communities, and let's take our country back. And not just to be stable, let's grow this country beyond our wildest dreams. And I feel that that's really what's happening today. And we are lucky enough to be in a country like this in Africa with strong, there's nothing wrong with the word strong. When people say strong man,
strong.
we don't want a weak leader. Strong black African leadership. This is commendable, and to be honest, the world should be on their feet applauding Rwanda. So that's how I feel every day that I wake up here. Rwanda is one of the safest countries in the world. It's one of the cleanest countries in the world. It works, rule of law. People follow the rules. You have so many female parliamentarians, actually the most in the world, over 50%, which is more than even in the West. And we all know women are natural nurturers. So when you have females empowered and given the ability to be all they will, you're going to have a great situation. Because they're going to, just like Mama Africa, it's called Mama Africa for a reason. Because the mother is your first teacher. She looks after you. So it's only natural to empower women. Another thing I've noticed from living here is that young people are empowered. You know, you have a lot of drive to push ICT and technology. Even when it comes to agriculture, we know that most of Africa is coming from an agrarian pastime, but we really have to use technology to mechanize these agricultural systems. And Rwanda is active in doing that. There's one company here, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, called Zipline.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Zipline is an autonomous drone company that delivers life-saving materials such as blood and medicines and what have you to very rural communities. And this is the first place in the world that an autonomous drone has been able to do that. Not even in America or Europe, etc. Rwanda is the first country in the world that's done that. And now they have so many drones all day long delivering life-saving materials all over to remote areas. That's so commendable to me.
While listening to you, talking about all those beautiful things that are happening in Rwanda, I think they should be able to study this case. Rwanda is a positive case to study in universities. I think even the president should give some lectures, in universities. Probably he will be doing that in the future. Probably, who knows?
I fully agree.
Because the way that he does that with his team, because it's not only him,
sure,
but it's a team.
Yes.
The way he does that is pretty impressive. To take a country the way the country was, to put it on that level, it's not easy.
Not at all.
Not easy.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And as a case study, Rwanda stands alone. Like I said, many places have had issues. Even if we look at South Africa with apartheid, that reconciliation to the level that Rwanda does it hasn't really happened in South Africa to this day, which is why South Africa has issues like xenophobia pop up every now and again, and unspeakable violence just breaks out every now and again in South Africa. Beautiful country, but still they haven't really atoned for the sins of the past. A more famous example even is America, with American slavery and segregation and Jim Crow laws. America hasn't really atoned for their sins either, against first off Native American peoples, then African peoples. They haven't atoned to either group. So I think, just like what you said there, brother, if we're able to tell our stories, our own narrative from African voices that were there and are still here, say it how we want to say it in our context, how we know how things happened, why they happened, sometimes in our complex social structures, we should tell the world our struggles. Then I feel that people will come to that understanding of, right, everything is not seen through a Western lens. Everything is not understood just in black and white. There's several layers of things, and this goes back so far. Like I said about our trauma, it goes back so far, and it manifests itself every now and again in these divide and conquer situations that boil over to something so ugly as what happened here 30 years ago. And to turn the tables on that and create something so beautiful as the movement that's happening right now within Rwanda. And what we hope is that this just spreads and metastasizes all over Africa with that idea of, if you have political will, benevolent leadership, visionary leadership, and a cooperative population, then you're moving in the right direction.
Okay, before we talk about your work here, I've seen a lot of nice painting
Thank you.
and also clothing lines. Whatever you do here, artistically. Um, just to conclude on that part of the interview about this continent, what do you see? What do you see? Because you've traveled in many countries in Africa. Do you have hope for Africa?
Oh my gosh. Boundless. Boundless hope for Africa. I was talking to a brother the other day, and I was explaining what hope means. The basic pyramid of needs. If you have your food, shelter, and clothing taken care of, you can start to think of these humanistic pursuits such as philosophy, and spirituality and psychology and these higher brain function kind of things, which you don't really need to live. You don't really need philosophy to survive. You can't eat philosophy, right? Philosophy's not going to protect you when there's a war or animal attack or what have you. Anyhow, because I think people can argue that, oh, well, if you think like this, but come on. So if you have those basic needs taken care of, then you can start to have hope of more. And what I mean by that is, Africa is not unique in the aspect that we're in a agrarian stage still, right? So that one country going through stages of development isn't the story of Africa. Africa's 54, sometimes 55, depending who you ask, or even more, countries that each have their growing pains. Each were colonized differently. Each were socialized a bit differently. Each were extracted from and manipulated and oppressed a bit differently. Now for us to right that situation, it takes different amounts of time. But the one thing that will ring true across the whole board of improvements is political will. If you have political will, it starts there, and respect and love for the people, not just the people today that the leadership governs, but future generations. Mm-hmm. You have vision 20, 30, 50 years ahead. And say, right, our country needs to be stable for time. And that's why I say that to see an example like what Rwanda is setting, we're literally living through history right now, it's setting this example in real time. That's what gives me hope for Africa. If there wasn't this kind of example like what we see in Rwanda, we'd have little bright spots and then back to the same old story. Oh, this leader says something good, but he's acting this kind of way. So do as I say, not as I do. And that's been going on forever. Guys that speak eloquently and can talk a good game, but they're not actually doing the actions. And if you check Rwanda's track record, it's doing what it says. And it says what it's doing. How they're pushing tourism. Tourism is so underrated in terms of the development of a country and what interests foreign direct investment to invest in the country. If you have good tourism, that probably means you have a relatively safe country. Because who wants to visit a war zone? Right? Or bombed buildings and these kind of things. You have a relatively safe country. You have a relatively disciplined population, whereas visitors aren't going to feel in fear for their safety. Yeah. Then from there, infrastructure, transportation systems. Rwanda really focused on trying to make their airline one of the best, not just in Africa, but in the world. And this little country, Rwanda Air, is one of the best national carriers in Africa. You can name them on one hand. And again, there's 54 countries. You can name on one hand the national carriers in Africa. And the biggest country in Africa actually don't even have airlines. So you have to respect a lot of things that Rwanda is doing correctly. The way they conserve the natural environment as well and try to live harmoniously between the people and nature and animals. This is one of the last places in the world you can see mountain gorillas in their natural habitat, to the point it's become the icon of the country. It's on the money. By the way, I challenge the audience at home, look up what's on Rwandan money, on all the bills, and you'll see it's very interesting. You can tell a lot by what a country chooses to put on their money, on their currency, as their value. Rwanda is conservation, education, youth, and culture. You won't see a president's face on Rwanda's money, even though we could do that. But we choose to promote the country and conservation and the future. Very interesting things. Rwanda is very intentional about what it does with everything, it seems. And it's paying off.
Marlon, when we came, actually, we didn't know that we were going to talk about Africa in the way that you talk about Africa and also Rwanda. So I appreciate that interview, and then I think we are on the same frequency. Maybe that's why we can talk about Africa the way we talk about it. Mm-hmm. So now I think we're going to conclude with this part of the interview. We are going to encourage our viewers to continue to follow us on YouTube and to continue to subscribe, to share, to like, and to comment. This is a very, very nice interview. I would like everybody to share that one with people who think about Africa highly. Also to people who have the Pan-Africanist mind, to share that video with your friends and family. We're gonna stop that first part of the interview, and I will also encourage you to watch the second part that will be focusing on culture and what Marlon is doing in Rwanda. Thank you, Marlon.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
And thank you, guys.